Well, I know the internet's dead.
What?
Way too warm in here. I'm like, I shouldn't be here right now. I should be on a plane.
Well, it's like 30 degrees outside, so I don't know why it's warm in here.
I don't know either. It's probably because of all the damned computers running. We only have 74 computers in this room. I wish you guys could see all of the computers that are in this room. We melted a 4770K today.
Oops.
My plane was canceled. This has been one of those days, but it's good to be here doing the tech.
No.
So, no?
This is going to be a terrible episode. They've broken the internet.
Yeah, they have broken the internet. But first off, let's start off with the lighthearted and fun stuff. And I'm talking about the oatmeal right now. Now, Inman has designed. I guess it is designed because he designed this website, but he drew a little comic here about his Model S. He purchased a Model S, and that's, of course, the car from...
The electric Tesla Roadster.
Yeah. And he's got a very interesting comic here about it, talking about his love for the Tesla, He prefers not to call it a Model S because it doesn't have enough of a zing to it or whatever. He doesn't use the word zing because he's a lot cooler than I am, but he says that he calls it an intergalactic space boat of light and wonder, or the electric cruise beast. Hop in my electric cruise beast. I want to get one just so I can call it the electric cruise beast. Anyway... and then I'll go downtown and pick up the horse beasts with the cruise beast.
No.
Anyway, I forgot where I was going with this. Oh, yeah, so here's what happened. Tesla, right? The Tesla car was named after Nikola Tesla. Now, Nikola Tesla invented the engine that's used in the Tesla car. That's right. A dude who made stuff like 100 years ago and invented pretty much everything under the sun, created the engine, patented it, and nobody used it. Well, mainly in large part because they tried to defame the poor guy, and I don't know. He didn't really go crazy, but he was talking to animals at one point, wasn't he?
Tesla was a genius, but he wasn't very good at business. And Edison was amazing at business and slightly abusive. And so as a result, Tesla died penniless, even though he was the better scientist versus Edison. Now,
the Oatmeal has done lots of really awesome comics about Tesla, and you guys should go back and check those out. If you haven't seen them, just type into Google Tesla Oatmeal and read that. And then he had a campaign going on for a while called Let's Build a Goddamn Tesla Museum. And with that campaign, what he was trying to do is raise several $1 million to save a facility, one of Tesla's old facilities, and then turn it into a museum. They were just going to tear it down. I believe it was in New York, but you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. And so anyway, he raised a bunch of money, and that essentially saved the property. But it was not enough money to create a Tesla museum. So he's created this little campaign, and it freaking worked. Matthew Inman does stuff, and it works. How does that work? He just always gets away with these schemes, and they work, and it's awesome. More power to him. I want them all to work because I agree with him. I love when people that I agree with get things done.
He draws funny cartoons, and then his followers read the funny cartoons, and then he has an undead army of people that read his cartoons that will carry out his bidding.
That's pretty much it. So they made the Tesla museum work. So he appealed to Elon Musk, because Elon Musk is using the name Tesla. That's a family name, and he likened it to the fact of, let's see, this is part of the comic.
Elon Musk owns the Tesla Motor Company.
Yeah, he was like, it's similar, it would be the same thing as, like, suppose in like 100 years someone decided to just use the Steve Jobs name for their company, and they're like making a hovercraft. So here's the Steve Jobs hovercraft. Hover different. So he said that's pretty much the same thing, because he's using Tesla's family name, and there is one person still alive who is, a descendant of Tesla. I don't think he's a direct descendant, but he's like a, something. So anyway, he's saying, man, you're using all this stuff. You're using the Tesla name. I know that, like, the Tesla name is now, like, completely free to use. There's no copyright on it or anything like that. His patents have expired. You can use all this stuff. But the least you could do, Mr. Elon Musk, is throw some money at this Tesla museum. So, he made the comic. And the second comic, part 2, is he's actually calling out Elon Musk and saying, man, we need some more money. We need about $8 million to actually make this a thing. Because right now we've just got the land, the property, and we can't turn this into an actual museum like we wanted to because it took a lot of money to buy the place. So he's, made this. There's a little letter from the guy. He attached this letter from the guy who is a descendant of Tesla, pleads with Musk. And guess what happened? On Twitter, Musk responds, I would be happy to help. That's what makes me happy about this. So yeah, they're building a Tesla museum. I really like the fact that, number one, Musk saw it, and I'm not sure how much Musk is going to give, but hopefully Musk has $8 million laying around, because I want to go to to the Tesla Museum. It's all a selfish thing for me, Wendell. I don't care about anything else. I just want to go. I personally want to go to this museum and look around a bit. That'd be a lot of fun. And maybe they'll have one of those rooms that's just filled with, like Tesla always had the Tesla coils, and they're just like shooting sparks everywhere, and you can walk around them, and they don't hurt you.
Yes.
Maybe they can build a room like that where we can just walk around and let the bolts of lightning type things hit us. That'd be kind of cool. So yeah.
So yay, they're going to build a Tesla museum. Because the Indiegogo thing was really to just save the site and buy the land, I guess. But now they actually need to, build it and do the rest of everything.
Yep. Let's talk about George R.R. Martin for a moment. This is just funny news that came out, and I want to talk about it because George R.R. Martin is still using DOS when he types his novels, like The Song of Ice and Fire. DOS.
That was before Windows.
Yes, for all you guys who have no idea what DOS is.
What's DOS?
DOS? I don't know.
It's a text-based operating system. And so it's like, okay, Linux can be a text-based operating system, but DOS is more akin to, I don't know, flipping switches and using punch cards.
Oh yeah, I don't have a start button on this thing. I'm going to bring it up real quick. I'll just do it live. And look, we have DOS. There we go, right there on the screen. It's pretty much DOS. Watch me. Oh no, an error. It doesn't understand hello. But yeah.
So he uses WordStar 4.0 as his word processor.
I mean, I like his reasoning for doing this. If you read the article, why he said he does not use any of the newer word processing units, he just said, word processing, what did I say? Word processing programs. He doesn't want any help. He doesn't want to know how to spell anything. He doesn't want anything to be capitalized. He says, if I want something to be capital, I will make it, capitalized. So I really agree with him. A lot of the modern word applications and that sort of thing, word processing applications, they are just too busy helping you format and moving stuff around. And hey, let's indent this for you. Isn't that what you wanted? Someone's going to say right now in the comments, you can just press Control-Alt-F10 with your elbow and disable it. I can hear you right now, troll. I don't want that. I don't want it. I want to have to enable it.
My favorite quote is that he called it the Duesenberg of word processing software. If you don't get it, don't worry. You're not old enough.
The other thing that's really cool about this is he says that his machine that's running DOS, he's had it for 20 years, it is not connected to the internet, and I think that's a very important thing. And also, it's time to give a message to all the people out there in internet lands. If you have a work machine and a business machine, you will be way better off.
That's the same thing.
What? I see how tired I am? I'm still tired.
If you have a work machine and a business machine and a play machine and, whatever.
Yeah, that's what I meant to say. So basically, by switching up and having different machines, it puts your brain into a different mode of thought when you sit down at them. If you have like, what's the guy's name who made the FTL soundtrack? I can't remember the guy's name. Ben. Okay, just say Ben. He has a separate machine just for his audio creation, totally separate machine. And when he sits down at that machine, he's in audio creation mode and gets things done, not distracted by the internet or Facebook or whatever. That's what you guys should do if you want to really get stuff done. If you have a side project or your own small business or something like that, if you can afford a separate computer, even if it's a crappy computer, if you're someone who does email marketing or whatever, just get a separate computer just to do that. Maybe a laptop. And have it only be business, and then the other computer is all gaming. I know that's a bit ridiculous to say for some people, being like, man, I can barely afford one computer. How can I get two? Trust me, you'll get a lot done if you have two separate machines. I need to take that advice, too. Yes. Yeah. I'm going to make a Zweihander machine.
Yep.
I believe. That's like the next thing, because I want a keyboard, a Piana. So, yeah, I decided to preach for a little bit. Let's get back down to business. Mozilla is going to be adding some DRM in the next version of Firefox. And the reason they're doing this is because a lot of the Hollywood studios are like, hey, we want to be able to control things, and so they install all kinds of plugins like Silverlight and just whatever plugins you're going to have to install to watch their content. They want control, and they always say that this is about trying to reduce piracy and that sort of thing, and making sure you have the legal rights to play the content on your system, make sure you're in the right region of the world and all that sort of thing. But I don't think that's exactly what this DRM does. The DRM gives them the ability to really do some invasive things, like, monitor what you're doing. It's more invasive than just watching you. And the other funny thing about the whole DRM scheme is that so far they haven't proved, it hasn't been a proven method. It doesn't really help with the piracy at all. Like, there's no statistics that can prove this. There's no science here. So why is Mozilla doing this? I personally think it's just a lot of pressure from the Hollywood studios, and they figure, hey, if we just do this ourselves, if we don't do it, they're gonna do it with their plugins anyway. So we may as well give in and do it ourselves, so we have some control over it. But I don't know.
A lot of the problem here is you have to think about these kind of things from a user perspective, where the user has really no idea what's going on. So let's pretend for a moment that you're completely ignorant and have no idea what's going on, and you try to use Mozilla, and Mozilla's great. It's the cat's meow, everything's amazing. And then you try to go and watch Netflix, and it mysteriously doesn't work. But Internet Explorer and Chrome and every other web browser that you have works. Why can't you watch Netflix? I don't understand. You would, if you were ignorant, immediately think that this was a Mozilla problem. But in reality, the underlying problem is that those browsers don't respect your privacy necessarily in that case, and they use proprietary technologies, whereas Mozilla does. And this is really a user education problem, and it's up to us, the people in the know, to sort of educate other people about that type of a situation, because that type of a situation really leads to an undesirable result for everybody, because everybody's in the dark about what's going on.
That's exactly the thing that the EFF said. The EFF is totally against Mozilla accepting DRM, and here in their article they say that everyone loses by this. They say it's a privacy issue. They say it's they raise all kinds of different concerns here. So if you guys want, go ahead and take a look at this article. It's pretty interesting, but it does give you a balanced argument as to exactly. It gives you a more balanced view, I should say, not really balanced argument. A more balanced view of what the DRM is going to be doing in the background. So take a look at that article if you like. All right, the internet is over. Have you seen the time?
Uh-oh, it's Rant 30 all day long.
It's Rant 30. Since about noon, it's been Rant 30.
We've got news of Australia and England this time as well.
Yeah. It's the entire world. Okay, first off, let's really take a step back and look at what is really going on here. There's headlines like this: today the FCC will destroy the internet. It's been fun. That is a very final, thing to say. It's over. Everything is done. And everyone is saying that the FCC has done something. The FCC has attacked the internet. The FCC has allowed the internet to be destroyed. The FCC it's like the FCC is personally, would they be personally? Yeah, I guess they're just trying to destroy it. But what's really happening right here is that the FCC is not doing something. And they're making a big spectacle out of everything else so that you don't miss what they're not doing. And what they're not doing is they're not reclassifying internet service providers under Title II, section whatever. They're not reclassifying them. They won't even talk about it. They just keep saying, oh, we're going to make sure everything's good. And it's all about what they're not doing. And we can still make them do it. We got to get rid of Wheeler, I believe, because he's beyond corrupt. He's, what would you say, malicious?
It would definitely appear that he is completely malicious, corrupt, and working against the best interests of the American people, working for the best interests of carriers and corporations.
Before we move on, I want to show you guys what happened. Today, in the FCC meeting, they sat down and basically said, you know what, it's going to be okay. We're just going to sit back and let everything go this way. Because, before in the past, they actually did sue Comcast for throttling BitTorrent traffic. And they did sue Verizon for trying to do some things that went against net neutrality. And they lost both those cases. And in both those cases, like we've said before, the judges were like, dude, just reclassify them under Title II or whatever. What is it, Title II? Is that the right thing?
Title II, yeah.
Just reclassify them, you idiot. And they were like, no, we don't do that. Because we're getting too much money shoved in our ears, and we like how it feels when the money hits our ears. It feels good. So,
and they had been Title II until 2002 when the FCC made a change.
So at this point, they're just not doing anything. And they're saying we're going to let this happen, and we're going to watch it, but we're just going to let it happen. So the fast lanes and all that stuff, all the companies can already do that. It's just, when they did it, they were kind of like walking on eggshells. Like, are they going to sue us again? Because they had sued them in the past, and they're like, what's going to happen? But right now, the FCC is just kind of like, whatever, just do it, and tell you to stop it if you're bothering us or not shoving enough money into our ears.
Now, here's the really disturbing thing for me. This means that necessarily the past 2 court cases, so the first court case where the FCC sued Comcast for messing with BitTorrent traffic, basically, because they stepped in the middle of the packet stream and impersonated the people that were using BitTorrent, regardless of whether or not it was legal. BitTorrent is not in itself inherently illegal. It's if you use it to trade copyrighted material that you're not authorized to trade in. Sure, okay, maybe that's something, but there are a lot of legitimate uses of BitTorrent, including patch distribution, and it's used by World of Warcraft, Blizzard Entertainment, things like that. But nothing came of that. The Comcast was allowed to do that because they were reclassified as Title I, and that's what the court case said. We've said that before. You guys know that. But the FCC is acting like this is a big deal, and we don't understand, and oh my gosh, blah, blah, blah. It's more complicated than that, because they really think everybody around them is a moron. And so here we have experts in the industry that are looking at this and saying no, and you have people like us, which hopefully maybe, I don't want to call us like industry experts or anything like that, but we know our way around technology, and we're saying, look, this at the very least, this merits re-examination, and they're saying no. And so their actions today sort of cast a different light on their previous actions. It sure looks like those 2 court cases, the one where they sued Comcast and the other one where Verizon sued them and said, no, we're not going to follow your rules and what the court said and what they're doing now. All of that now looks like a smokescreen. It looks like they're not serious about that. It looks like it's just a distraction to do things that are not consistent with their charter, one, but also 2, that are not really in the carrier's best interests, and we're going to prove it.
Let's check out our sponsor, Squarespace. Now, this is a company that we are using ourselves, so we do believe in this company. This is our little store that we're building, and one thing I like about this is it's all content forward, guys. It's all about your content. It's not about goofy themes and styles. The styles basically get out of your way, and it forms around your content. So as you can see here, it's just very easy to use. You can have a store like we have, or you can basically build anything you want. If you want to blog, if you want to, if you're a photographer and you want a portfolio or something like that, you can basically just come here and just make it happen. Let me show you how this works. Let's say you've got a client, they got a restaurant, you just click on restaurant, you go through, you pick your theme, and then you fill it in with content, and then after that you can move things around, change the page order. It's pretty easy to use. If you want to get nerdy, you can get, you can get under the hood with Get Access. You can get, I almost said. I do like what they're doing for musicians. Really nice tools here. You can set everything up. It integrates with Bandcamp and SoundCloud. I'll show you an example here. You scroll down. You can sell your stuff right on here, or you can just have it linked straight to Bandcamp. You click this, it goes over to Bandcamp. And like I said before, you can always use the shop, and you can sell digital items on the shop. One last thing that I do like, let me click on menu up here. There's a logo creator, and there's a lot of tools for developers. There's also an app. Did I mention there's an app? But see, you have full control. If you want to make some really detailed changes to the theme, that's beyond just what you can do with simple dragging and dropping and using the GUI, the interface. You've got CSS, HTML, SFTP, and Get Access, so you can do anything you want with that. Again, we're using this ourselves, and I cannot wait to launch the store on Squarespace. The back end is really nice. We also opted to go with the shipping module, and that allows us to bulk print the shipping labels for postage. It's going to be really nice and easy for us, and we'll be able to get some products to you guys. So now back to the regularly scheduled tech. Right here, back to the articles. We're seeing again, today what they really did, they sat down at like noon Eastern time today, I think it was around that time, and they came up with some quote-unquote new net neutrality rules. These things are scaring me. And it's all bullshit. They're not doing anything. It's just a spectacle. It's like, oh my God, guys, look at the show. Look at the show. There's a thing going on over here. It means everything they do means nothing. And right here, Wheeler, it just said, I will not allow the national asset of an open internet to be compromised. The prospect of a gatekeeper choosing winners and losers on the internet is unacceptable. Well, then reclassify them, dude. Reclassify as Title II. Anything you say does not mean anything if you're not taking that one action.
Look at it like this. So that has already happened with Comcast. Comcast has already become the gatekeeper of the BitTorrent protocol, and they throttle it, and nothing has happened. And that has been 5 years, over 5 years now, and nothing has happened with that. And the FCC is powerless to stop it. this rulemaking is just making noise. We said last week it's like making a thing that says these companies will not eat babies, and of course the companies are not going to sue them for that because it's like, who in their right mind would eat babies?
Yeah,
but that's literally what there's like. Well, we give up. We don't have any power here.
Comcast, meanwhile, has a baby leg in his mouth and just puts it back like, we weren't eating babies. We'll do anything but eat babies. Can we eat the placenta? Ugh.
Now here's the spin that we're going to put on it. This ties in with something The Verge uncovered that we've been saying forever. But there's documented proof. Verizon has been claiming that they have special privileges under Title II. It has to do with their right to run lines on your property, something called public right-of-way. So if you have a piece of land and they need to bury utility cables or whatever, they can just do it because they're a utility company and it's in the public interest that they have access to do that. And so if they need to run lines in the city or in the country or whatever, as a Title II communications company, they're allowed to do that. And so in the New Jersey, where they've been rebuilding after storms and things like that, they've been rebuilding some of the infrastructure. They're using their quote unquote Title II status to do that. Title I companies have no legal entitlement to do that, at least not the same way.
Well, yeah, you could sue them if they tried to do something like that, right? I mean,
yes, yeah, you could, because they're not. It's not. With Title II, you have to offer phone service to everybody, and under Title I, they can be like, well, we're going to sell service to you and you and you, but you can go to hell. Go away.
I mean, it's really like as if Title II were more like a public service, and Title I's more like a business.
Yes.
That's the bottom line, but that's hilarious. And then whenever they say, "Hey, Verizon, you have to improve your speeds and you have to do this," you'd be like, "We don't have to do anything." And like Verizon, you can't do anything anti-competitive. Verizon, you cannot throttle one website and make another one faster. You cannot do that. They're like, "We don't have to do anything." Title I, hey, we're not under Title II.
I mean, by definition, they're already being anti-competitive with Netflix traffic. The ISP's customers are requesting that traffic under the terms of their user agreement. The users are not in violation of their agreement. The ISP cannot deliver the traffic. They cannot deliver the service that they signed up for. The ISP is now asking money for Netflix. Again, it goes back to a user education. The user doesn't understand. It's like, well, these websites work, but not Netflix. It must be a Netflix thing. And that's because the average user does not understand. It's up to us to educate everybody. If everybody understood, I think a larger percentage of the population would be grabbing their torches and pitchforks. And there were enough people at the FCC thing that it really did look like Wheeler was a little unseated, like he was a little nervous, like he was really kind of, one of the other commissioners and Wheeler were both, in my opinion, just looking at the video and reading their body language, they were kind of cocky.
Let's take a look at the video here. So, first off, go back to the beginning. So they're starting the meeting here, and someone stands up
and we want to make sure that
and starts
in the context of this,
yelling. They have a hard time getting him out of there. It's pretty funny. So he goes on about net neutrality.
Obviously, the internet's a common carrier. It brings up.
What's great is when he leaves, they give him a round of applause. So then he's escorted out, and right on time, right on cue, the lady stands up, and she starts. So she does her thing, gets another round of applause, which is interesting. I mean, people in this room are sitting there, and they're applauding these people who are getting arrested for standing up and saying you're not, working for the American people, obviously. And then, after she gets escorted out, a third gentleman, who happens to be a war veteran, stands up. Gives him a piece of his mind. And, the entire time, you see Tom Wheeler and those guys just sitting there with like a blank look on their face. And as soon as they leave, they're like, all right, let's get down to business. And they vote against everything.
Let's decide what we already decided on before we even got here. And they voted on party lines, too. All the Democrats were like, yeah, let's do this. And the Republicans were like, no, let's not do this. I was kind of surprised by that. I kind of figured that we would have 3-2 the other way. But it didn't work out that way. I guess I shouldn't be surprised. I mean, as cynical as I am, it's like, well... Now I'm even more cynical.
I read an article earlier today, and I forget where I found this article as I put it on the screen, but the title was something like, am I the only tech person who is against net neutrality? And the article went on to say that, like, listen, let's let these guys do terrible, horrible things. Let's let the ISPs do terrible, horrible things to the internet. Let's let them break the internet in America and break it in Europe. Because then out of, the ashes of the broken internet, all these little companies will rise up, and all these, small communities will get together and make their own and put them out of business. He said, listen, if we have no net neutrality. If everything goes the way Wheeler wants it to go right now, he was like, in 10 years, there's going to be no Comcast and no Time Warner. That they'll just go away because nobody wants them. But I have a few problems with that idea. First off, they're using the government as a business tool, and that's a huge red flag. Whenever you're using the government as a business tool, you can do things that are so anti-competitive, and you can embed yourself in ways in different communities, and you can also make it illegal to create competing companies, like they've done in some places.
And so it's like a lot of people hear that, and there might be a few skeptics in the audience, and so just bear with me, everybody else, so that we can help elevate the skeptics. And so it's like, oh, how does that really work, blah, blah. Well, the reality is that these incumbents have basically free reign, not just in terms of right-of-way, but use of telephone poles, things like that. They have all of their co-op stuff in place. It's really no big deal for them. If they need to run a fiber optic cable all the way, from Main Street to the most rural house ever, they can do that. Their line techs are already familiar with it. People that are already employed in the community are familiar with it. They already have all the permits in place, all the companies that are involved, because they don't necessarily own all of those poles. All the companies involved are familiar with one another, and these are the types of barriers that make it very difficult for another company to start up, because another company has to say, well, who are the contractors that are allowed to work on the poles? What do I need to do to run a line? Are there any poles that are overloaded that are difficult for me to get my infrastructure on there? And if you think about it, it's like, well, does it really make sense that we run, 3 cable television connections to every house and 4 telephone lines to every house? I mean, no, that's sort of a waste. Maybe we should have a shared infrastructure, or some type of globally planned infrastructure that everybody has access to. And that's what we were saying in 1996, basically 30 years ago, with the 96 Telecommunications Act. And so because these incumbents are basically able to lock up and hoard not just their wired infrastructure, but also the places that you would want to run your own wires, they're effectively able to behave anti-competitively in sort of a covert way. And that's the problem.
Let's take one more look. I love what's going on in Chattanooga. And just for the record, I'm not a huge fan of Tennessee as a state. I think it's a beautiful state, and there's some really awesome people there. I never was a huge fan of a lot of the cities. I mean, Nashville's all right, whatever. Just not a country music guy, I guess. I don't know. But Chattanooga, man, they have gigabit internet, $70 a month, and it's just run by the local municipality, and it's ridiculous. What it's done for the community is absolutely ridiculous. So go to your town hall meetings. I'm going to say that again. I don't think that the full answer is going to be just a bunch of new companies starting up and putting the old ones out of business, but that's a huge start. I think it may actually help in the cities. Out in the middle of nowhere, it may be difficult for people to get together and create their own ISP, so they're going to be beholden to Comcast, Time Warner, whoever else. But in some of the cities, big and small, if they get together and make their own internet, it could be a much better world. So, speaking of that, Comcast is saying that they're now going to be rolling out data caps for all of their customers within 5 years. So I am currently using Comcast. So Comcast, you can go screw yourself. I'm looking for someone new tomorrow. See what I can find.
It's kind of interesting. This interview came as a result of sort of, I guess, I guess it was an interview to be like, well, why should we let, Time Warner and Comcast merge? And one of the questions there was like, well, how do you see data caps working? Or I'm paraphrasing a bit. And they were like, well, we're caps are important. We're going to have to do that because more and more people are using it. But we want to
we don't want to upgrade.
We want to make the cap so generous that most people won't run up against that. And so what was generous was 500 gigabytes. But for people that are getting their television over the internet, 500 gigabytes really doesn't go very far.
So let's talk about not only television. They're getting their television. They've got all their movies, and like you just said, they're playing games online, and they're sharing files all the time. And what about the people who are working, with a little home office or whatever, and they're sending large files? What if you're doing video stuff and you're sending large files? You're gonna have to spend $500-600 a month on a business grade connection to get around the caps. Is there going to be caps on business grade stuff? That's what really worries me. And also the way they say this, the way they're like, we don't want anyone to have to worry about this. Well, then don't give them caps. I mean, if you say you want the caps to be so high that you don't want anyone to worry about it or think about it, obviously someone's going to have to worry and think about it because there's a cap. So just get rid of them and the problem is solved.
Again, the FCC could step up here and create some sort of a rule, not even a rule, just a guideline to deal with situations like this. Because the courts, there have already been cases, and in the court system in America, the way that it has been ruled is like, well, we're going to look at what your cost and your margin and your profit is on the normal service, and then we're going to apply that to the service that we think that you're being anti-competitive with. And that sounds more convoluted than it is. How that really translates is in a lot of cases, and in there was a Bell case where they were charging a certain amount for streaming their own television service, but then they were charging more for a Netflix streaming service. And so the court said, okay, we're going to look at what you charge and what your profit and your margin is for the service that you're selling, and then we're going to price the pure data service with the same margins and the same, everything else, and that was considerably less than what they were charging. Now, of course, that was a nuisance fee. That the carrier was charging the individual more to use a competing service in order to discourage them from doing that, which is anti-competitive behavior. But because people don't understand, and because we have corrupt officials that aren't interested in overseeing this kind of thing, this is not happening, at least on an oversight. Like, I'm not advocating for, big government and we need regulations and all this kind of stuff. It's just that the best disinfectant is sunlight. And if we can get in there and look at it honestly, a lot of these problems go away.
Another thing that can make some of the problems go away, encryption can help a lot, because then they can't exactly see what you're doing and they can't throttle you. That's why we always recommend a VPN. When you go to our website, you see over here that, hey, we recommend a VPN.
They can throttle you, just not based on the type of content you have.
Yeah, they won't know exactly what you're doing on the internet. So got a few different VPNs over here. Like I said, whenever I refresh it, a different one will pop up. And I've been talking to a lot of these VPNs because I think it's very important that we keep our connections secure, and that we shouldn't have to tell them what's going on. All they're providing is data, and that's kind of what you get when you have a VPN. It's just a data stream. They don't see anything but the data. If you're using their DNS, they can see what websites you go to, but they don't know what you're doing while you're there. They don't know anything that's going on. So
this is Sandvine. Sandvine's reporting on it. Sandvine is one of the companies that makes the tools that allows ISPs to throttle, shape, and do this. Not just ISPs, but companies as well, to throttle and shape their internet traffic. And it does real-time analysis to see what kind of traffic it is. And so in a year, VPN traffic went from 1.47% to 6.10%. That is a huge growth.
Yeah, that's really wild. I mean, I know a lot of our users are already using a VPN. It's kind of cool to see that the encrypted traffic is on an upward trend. And I'm going to be doing an interview. I didn't even tell you about this one. I'm going to be doing an interview with the CEO of Viper VPN. I'm going to be talking to PIA as well, and some of the other companies out there, probably Pure VPN. I'm going to try to talk to them.
Probably HostWinds.
Yeah, HostWinds. We're going to be talking to HostWinds for sure. We switched over to HostWinds on our for our server, and we've been talking to those guys. So we're going to be trying to hook you guys up with some packages where you can create your own VPNs, or possibly even use HostWinds for a number of different things to host your own service. But they are members of our community, which is something I'm really happy about.
Yeah.
And we've talked to them on the phone, so they're cool guys. But we'll get those things to you guys soon. Right now, I've got a question for you. What do you want us to ask the different VPNs? So what would you ask a VPN? So we really need some questions from you guys. You guys can go here and just post up your questions. There's going to be a link down in the description where you can go on our website and ask a bunch of questions. And what I'm going to do when I actually interview the different VPNs, I'm going to be like, let's see here. I got a question from Jody. And he wants to know, how is this truly anonymous? And do you store anything about the users? So I will actually ask them the questions from you guys. And I'll ask them my own questions as well. And I think it'll be kind of cool to find out, number one, who's kind of behind these companies. We get to meet some of the people that are in charge of these companies that we're trusting our encrypted data with. I guess it's when it goes to them, I guess it's pretty encrypted. Just we'll get to learn a little bit about how it works, and just see some of the differences in the different VPN services. So that's going to be coming up very soon. But like I said, I need your questions. Anyway, also I wanted to announce that Viper VPN has Viper DNS coming soon. So that's going to be very cool. I know PIA already has their own DNS service. Viper is a bit different as far as the overall company structure goes and some of their philosophies. So we'll get into that when we actually do the overview videos on these. But now they have their own DNS server. And what that really does, like I was just saying, if you're using a DNS server from your ISP, they can see what websites you go to, because the way the DNS server works is a DNS server. Like if you type in google.com, well, that's not how the internet works. The internet works by IP addresses. So, google.com hits the DNS server, and then the DNS server forwards you to whatever IP address Google is. And it goes through your ISP, like Comcast or Time Warner. They'll be doing the translation for you. Well, now it's going to be working through Viper or through PIA. There's also some alternative ones like OpenDNS and Google DNS, but it's just kind of cool to see that the DNS companies are providing this as well, just so that all of your traffic is no longer visible by your ISP.
If you're using a VPN and you're using Google for DNS, that's kind of like jumping from the frying pan into the fire.
Yeah.
Although I think AT&T's advertising and analysis on their gigabit UVerse service might be more invasive, maybe.
Probably.
Because they log everything too, and then apparently there's an unconfirmed report that at certain levels the AT&T service reps can see that on the gigapower service or whatever, because AT&T mines the crap out of that apparently. So yeah, if you're on AT&T, use a VPN because reasons.
Let's go to the international world type thing.
All right, so this is the big news we were waiting for from Australia. We've been kind of quiet on Australia lately because they were working on their budget and the budget wasn't out yet, and then some things were happening, and then something was on fire, and then I don't even know what happened, and then some other things. But anyway, so the federal budget in Australia, or Oz, if you will, or Melbourne, or I don't know. Please don't hate us. We can't help it.
Welcome to Melbourne.
I'm a redneck. I can't help it. I'm sorry.
I prefer hillbilly.
Okay, hillbilly's probably a better choice.
Probably more accurate, right? Anyway, go ahead.
I majored in Rube Goldberg machines at the university. No. So anyway, I don't even know.
6 people got that.
So there's a federal budget now in Australia, and basically everything to do with technology was abandoned. Not really abandoned. I mean, this is pretty bleak, though. I mean, basically anything more advanced than buggy whips or, fire was abandoned by the government. They just turned and ran the other way. And so there's a pretty good article of all the different, there's a pretty good summary of all the different technology things that got screwed by the budget. But the big thing that got screwed was the National Broadband Network. Now, that's not really a surprise, but I was reading through this and sort of trying to understand the nuances of this, and I got to the part where it said the Australian Renewable Energy Agency just is gone. Like, they were like, we don't need that anymore. We're going to burn oil and coal for the rest of time.
It's been working out since the beginning of time, and it'll work out for the rest of time, right? We don't need a mathematician to tell us when it's going to run out.
So apparently that will save them $1.3 billion, but how does that work? An entire agency just is gone in the next budget. I don't, maybe somebody can tell us, but that seems bad.
I mean, it's saving money by cutting something just completely off. Let's cut off the judicial and the presidential branch, the whole our executive branch. Let's just cut that off. You know how much money we'll save?
They also apparently cut $27.5 million from the Nuclear Science and Technology Organization, which is probably the group that runs your nuclear reactors. So good luck with your next Fukushima.
You guys are totally fuked. Is that a thing? Do people say that?
So no, they don't say that at all.
That's probably offensive to some people.
Yes,
well,
it is.
I'm
deeply
sorry.
offensive.
I'm sorry, but it's true.
It's especially offensive in Oz. I don't. It's okay. I'll just stop now. No, something's happening. So the other thing that was bad is, of course, the National Broadband Network, and so basically they're defunding that over the next few years. It was supposed to have like $30 or $40 billion in funding. That figure changed a lot, and so basically they're defunding. They almost completely defunded it, but not quite this year, from what it looks like. But it's going to be completely quote unquote private in just a few years. Which my read of that is that basically they're going to turn it over to quote-unquote private industry, which is probably the people that are already in power. And so effectively what's happening here in America is coming to Australia. It's fast-tracked for Australia. So with the government abandoning this national broadband network, it's going to create a vacuum of power, and one or two companies are going to buy up the infrastructure and buy up all the stuff that goes with that. And so you're effectively going to have a Comcast Time Warner situation in Australia. I mean, it's already pretty bad, but it's going to be worse. And those companies are going to behave just as sociopathically as Comcast and Time Warner are now. So I don't expect the internet situation to improve at all in Australia over the next 3 to 4 years as this thing, quote unquote, goes private. I think that prices are going to go up dramatically, and they're already high. So this is probably bad, and I'm really surprised you guys haven't grabbed your torches and pitchforks.
Just there's one easy way to put. You guys can thank Rupert Murdoch for a lot of these things. Just picture him with his tongue like way inside the politicians' ears, like tickling their brains almost. That's what's going on right now. He's just like, I want you guys to have this idea in your head because it'll make you angry, and that's a good thing. I want you to get mad. Just think of his ugly, shriveled face, just licking the neck and ears of your favorite politician.
Is he some sort of anti-technology succubus?
Oh man, I would try to do some faces, but you guys will make memes out of it, and I don't need that. I don't need any memes of my tongue flicking, flick.
There are already enough bear memes. We need to not give anybody any ideas.
Yeah, those bear memes are barely tolerable.
So when we got this new information economy, I hope you guys in Oz are enjoying your dial-up connection to that information economy.
Oh, but they blocked the Pirate Bay too.
Yes.
It's completely blocked. It just, nope, can't have it. I mean, that's, okay, to be fair, the Pirate Bay is usually not used for anything legitimate, but...
Yeah, it's a slippery slope. I mean, one day it's the Pirate Bay, the next day it's anybody that opposes Turnbull. I mean, it's a slippery slope.
Get him. Yeah.
So, in other news in the UK, apparently UK ISPs are close to a deal with the quote-unquote entertainment industry, and they're going to send quote-unquote non-threatening letters to infringers to encourage different behavior.
Non-threatening sounds a little threatening to me. Why don't we call these educational letters? These are educational letters because everyone's so stupid that when they download something that they shouldn't be downloading, they don't know enough. They need to be educated.
The thing that really disturbs me here is that it's like, well, we're probably not going to send more than 2.5 million letters every year. It's like, holy crap, 2.5 million letters. That is crazy. So the other thing, too, to consider here is that in order for them to do this, they need to observe your internet traffic. And that's the difference here. Most of the time with these media industries or these media companies or whatever, they will go and they will connect to a BitTorrent swarm, and then they will look at everybody that's participating in that, and then they will do these notices based on that. This is different. This is working with the ISPs to actively spy on all of the traffic, a la the NSA that has been happening in America, and deal with it that way. Now, it may not be implemented that way. I'm hoping that's not the case. But if you read some of the language in here, I think that the communications, the media, the entertainment industry is going to steer ISPs that way as a quote-unquote preventative measure. So instead of ISPs having to go and find where the pirated files are, the ISPs will just give the media companies access, or the media companies will tell the ISPs what to look for, and it'll be like, anybody pirating anything we should look for that. And that's very dangerous because that puts in even more of a surveillance apparatus that will be used for non-surveillance, non-copyright infringement things. It's just a dangerous thing to have.
I mean, also, if they're going to send out 2.5 million letters, there's going to be a lot of false positives in this. There's going to be a lot of things that look suspicious, and there's going to be a lot of people who get, an educational letter when they shouldn't have received anything at all. And that's, number one, it's a waste of money. Who's going to be fitting the bill for this? Probably the taxpayers, I would imagine. I mean, maybe the companies are going to fit the bills for this. Who's going to pay for this?
Apparently, the cost of the system will be shared between the rights holders, who will contribute £750,000 or 75% of the cost for each ISP, with a further £75,000 or 75% of the costs a year to cover the cost of running the service. So the ISPs are helping pay for this, basically in exchange for not being sued into oblivion.
So you're telling me that they're going to waste all this money sending out all these letters instead of spending the money to figure out ways to solve the distribution problem that's creating the problems in the first place?
Well, I've got news for you. It doesn't cost over £1 million to send 2.5 million letters by itself. It turns out the Postal Service will give you a bulk discount. What it does cost is to deploy the equipment necessary to do this kind of monitoring.
Speaking of monitoring, I guess we got to do it. Let's talk about the NSA. There's some funny things coming out from the NSA this week. Here's some photos of a router upgrade. This is a Cisco router being upgraded, and these are some photos that have been leaked, I suppose. And here's what's interesting: these photos are what they do is they intercept the router, in between point A and point B, and then they very carefully and secretly open it. That's illegal, isn't it?
Yes.
That's very illegal. And
Turns out.
It says right here in their notes, they're like, yeah, this is how we do it. We intercept it. They carefully open it to make sure that no one can tell that they've opened it. They plant a chip inside and they close it back up. And when a lot of people were talking about this in the past, saying like, hey, they put chips on a lot of stuff. That was when everyone had gone too far. You've put on your tinfoil hat. This is nonsense. They do not actually modify hardware. They only have big, boxes and giant server rooms that try to monitor all the incoming, connections. But clearly here, this is an internal thing here. Pictures of them modifying a router.
This is really funny because whoever swirled that guy's face apparently didn't get the memo that it's possible to totally unswirl that now. Oops.
Who's going to unswirl this? I want unswirl this for me. Do this.
I don't think that'll really help targeting the individuals that are in this photo. It's probably not really a thing. And
Dan Quayle.
If this router is on its way to some militant something somewhere, that's maybe okay. But how many terrorists in a cave need like a 2650 or whatever the heck this is? It's like, oh yeah, I totally got our wide area network up and running in the cave.
What's really happening right now? The director of the NSA, Clapper, is sitting there and he cannot get his zucchini bread recipe correct. And he's freaking out. He's throwing pots and pans. And so he's having them chip every old lady in the South right now so that when they send their muffin recipe or their zucchini bread recipe to their granddaughter so that she can make it for her kids, he's going to get it. And he's sitting there and he's waiting for it. So it's really not much to worry about, right?
This is kind of bad.
That's what I think is going on with it. Also, Glenn Greenwald says that the most ridiculous, things are yet to be revealed. He said that there's some huge stories in here. Let me, where's it out? There it is. He said there's some really huge stories, and there's one story in particular that he has yet to publish because it is, quote-unquote, very complicated. So I have no idea what could be coming.
I think this is interesting, and you should really watch this and read. And there are a lot of little nuanced things here that are hard to point out and sort of hard to go over in great depth. But if you look at this and you read a bunch into it, what Snowden and Greenwald are doing is really genius. They're releasing a little bit of information at a time, not to keep it fresh in the public's mind and not to. If you release everything in a month and then it goes away, it's not really that at all. I kind of thought it was that at first. What's happening here is that they are creating a situation where the intelligence community can explain itself or come clean and be like, yeah, we have those programs, yeah, we do this, yeah, we do that. But instead they're not doing that. Instead, they are twisting the truth and they are twisting reality and they are painting themselves into a corner with everything that they say. And these revelations when they come out and the leaks when they come out after the fact, they're not able to retroactively explain what they meant when they were saying things before. And so these leaks come out, and effectively the people in the intelligence community who have a duty to report to the public, not just in the U.S., but also in the U.K. and in Australia and European countries, Germany especially, Merkel and all that.
It's a Merkel.
They come out with believable, plausible-sounding stories, but then Greenwald does another leak proving that what they just said was a lie. And so we've never gotten to a point where they're actually being honest. Here we are over a year later, and stories are coming out that are contradicting their previous explanations, and it's like, you guys are still lying about everything. Everything you guys say is a lie.
I really like Greenwald. At first, I didn't like to invoke him in conversation because when you bring him up, immediately they're like, oh, you're one of those tinfoil hat freaks who believes Greenwald. Listen, Greenwald is not Alex Jones. He's not some loudmouth Texan yelling about everything from UFOs to concentration camps. No, he has sources to everything he says, and the sources usually come from places where, it's a lot of his sources are almost impossible to deny. So put it that way. And I also like the fact down here that he said he was totally ready for the rest of the community to either, I guess alienate him, ostracize is the word I'm looking for, maybe?
Yeah, ostracize is probably the best fit.
Yeah, they kind of like, he's now on the fringe, if you will. So, and he said he was totally ready for that, but this is what he considers to be journalism. And I've got a lot of respect for that. He's doing what he considers to be journalistically responsible. So, very good, Mr. Greenwald. Keep doing your thing. Yeah. All right, that's pretty much the end of this, I believe. In the next episode, we've got, there's a bunch of tabs here for the hardware episode.
Hardware.
I can't wait to talk about the hardware, but you got to go see a movie, don't you?
No.
What? You're not going to see the movie?
Yeah.
Don't sound like you want to go see this movie.
I'm going to go watch Godzilla for better or worse. Probably worse.
You being dragged?
No, well, there's the really old school Godzilla have a certain magic, and I fear that this is going to be like the Abrams Trek incident.
Magic? You mean like you were 12 and it was cool?
Yeah.
But now you're like an adult and it's like, I don't know if I'd like this.
This is really terrifying. Yeah, probably.
All right, well.
Although it didn't have a terrible score on Rotten Tomatoes, so there may be hope.
There's some links over here. I don't know which side it is because I'm sitting in a different place. I think they're, put me on the screen so I can see. I think they're over here. Let's see, where is it? Over here. I don't know where the links are. Anyway, tech support, thank you guys very much. Editor starts next week.
Yay, we've hired someone. Oh my god,
Maybe
we're
I
legit.
Yeah, that's very awesome. We've been able to hire somebody.
Although nobody sent us any Bitcoin since 312.
Bitcoins, guys, come on. Hey.
We haven't figured out what to do with them yet anyway, so it doesn't really matter. I think we're banking them on hopes that, in a year or two, Bitcoin will be worth $10,000 a coin, and then we'll have some money.
Yeah, I transferred some of them over to some other service. So they're there. They're just sitting there in an account, but they're going to be useful one day. All right.
Worth $10,000 each, because right now they're only trading at like 400, and it makes me very sad.
Remember a few years ago they were $1?
Well, at the end of last year, I don't know if it was on the show, I don't know if it got cut, but I remember making the prediction that in like December, that by the end of 2014, that I thought that Bitcoin would be worth $100 a coin or $10,000 a coin, or somewhere around there. And it looks like I'm on track for $100 a coin.
Maybe. All right, guys, we will see you in the hardware episode very soon.